Why the tech bros? Why call it the tech bros? What was the problem you saw? Why women?
So it's a bit of tongue in cheek. It's a bit of irony. It's just a bit of fun, really. And it really resonates with our audience. I think it is just something that really sticks.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's a very polarizing name.
It is polarizing. Yeah. That's how we do. Yeah.
Also, yeah. But I think it just leaves an impression whether, like, however you view it. So it makes it stick. So yeah, that's why we call it the Tech Bros.
Yeah. Is there any sort of polarizing moments you've had? Do people not like the name? Do people love it? Is it like quite love or hate?
Exactly. I think it's like you either love it or hate it, but I think the people who resonate with it really resonate with it. So yeah, it's been an awesome. I think we've had a lot of fun with the branding as well.
Yeah.
And in a very serious market and serious scope that we kind of working within, it's also nice to have that element to it. So yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that when, you should be worried when everyone thinks your brand is okay. But when your brand is, some people love it, some people hate it, that's when you know you're building something like really good.
Exactly. And you know that the people who believe in you really believe in you and stick by you. So yeah.
Yeah. And why did you feel the need to build the Tech Bros? There's accelerator programs that, women can join. Why did you feel the need to build Tech Bros?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I, we essentially see that there's a lot of things servicing female founders. There's a lot of initiatives serving technical founders, but there was nothing really at the intersection of the two. So we were like, let's create something that's servicing technical female founders.
Yeah.
There's also, I guess, a larger sort of industry debate, but essentially the VC landscape is very skewed towards all male teams. They receive well over 80% of funding.
All male teams, 80%?
And all female teams receive only 2% of venture capital funding. So there's a huge disparity there and really room for change to be made. So we thought, let's step into the industry and shake things up.
Yeah, brilliant. And to be fair, I've heard that some men say this. I'm curious to know what you feel on the stats that they say that this amount of funding goes to all female teams because there actually isn't that many. What do you say on that?
I think we got that was kind of a lot of the initial discourse when we were starting the Tech Bros, that, there's just not enough women that are interested in founding tech companies. And that was kind of the critique and critique we got early on. And we were like, we see this every day, we're surrounded by women who want to build companies, who want to be entrepreneurs, who want to be founders, who have all the capabilities to be founders as well. But it's just, I guess, we aren't given the same opportunities. So we proved it with our first cohort. Yeah. We were like, let's put together an accelerator program, only servicing all female teams, all technical teams, and show that there's demand for this. We had an 8.7% acceptance rate, which shows that there was a lot of demand for it. I think we sort of encounter people every day. We host a bunch of events, so we encounter technical women specifically, almost on a weekly basis, who want to found businesses. So it's not a numbers issue, and it's not an issue of there's not enough women who want to found.
That's brilliant, because I think it's about being in the right rooms, and then when you're not in the rooms, you can't see that this is the case. They're like, there's no one. It's like, if you were in the rooms, I'd imagine a Tech Bros Accelerator, you can see that people are passionate and women are passionate about building businesses. This is, why would a woman not be?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's an issue maybe of not being able to spot what exceptional women look like, because there's no, people pattern match against what they know to be successful, and that archetype is normally a man that's raised billions of pounds or dollars, who's now exited, but there's often not women that people can look to and see that, like, this is the role model or the pattern match that I'm matching against. So I think really, like, another reason we exist is to create that role model, to create that next female billionaire who people can recognize and point out, and even help VCs pattern match against that, and add more to the scope of what they understand to be an exceptional founder.
A question for me is, what do exceptional women look like that you think people are missing, that they can't pattern match at the moment?
I think it just sort of presents differently. So, for example, I think confidence in men presents differently from confidence in women. We also socialize to be more humble. So in terms of like upon first meeting, maybe you meet someone who is incredible, but is very humble about their achievements and doesn't feel like it's top of mind to bring it up immediately, whereas men are socialized to be like, yes, I'm amazing and this is what I've done. So I think there's that disparity. So it's just about reading between the lines and digging a bit deeper to figuring out like, oh, this is an exceptional woman who is really talented.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Being socialized to be more humble about achievements, but it feels like the VC world, especially the VC world, rewards hubris, like, you know, saying that you're this, that, and the other, which is sometimes you could argue not even grounded in reality at all. Whereas, have you heard that women need to feel 80% or be, I can't remember the stat on it, but they need to feel a lot more confident before maybe going for a promotion, you know, but men can feel 20% ready and be like, hey,
and there's that sort of study where it shows that within like a job context that women feel that they need to meet all the criteria for applying for a job, whereas men feel like they can reach 20% or whatever the stat is of the criteria and apply. So I think it's the same kind of I guess logic there. And I think we also, I guess, socialized as well for perfectionism. So a lot of the time we want to put out a perfect product and we want to pitch a perfect thing. But oftentimes, again, like I think men are socialized differently and essentially don't are okay and comfortable with going out with a 50% ready product. And I think what we also try and do with our events is we actually hosted a series last year called the Bad Ideas Build Day, where we say like come up with the worst idea that you can think of for a tech product, and then we switch those ideas around in teams, and then people build out the best version of this bad idea. And the idea is to get rid of this idea of perfectionism, to realize that you can start building even if it's not the perfect idea. And that's just the first step to then feeling confident enough to have that idea, work on it. Of course, it needs to be grounded in something, but then being able to pitch and be confident that you will get funding for an idea that's maybe half-baked, but can be iterated and improved upon.
Yeah, when we were chatting before, you mentioned to me that sometimes people see initiatives centered around women and diversity as charity cases, but you had an interesting view on that, so I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. It just feels like a lot of the time you kind of put into this bucket of, we pitying women, so we helping them, and that's kind of the outlook of it. But I think for us at the Tech Bros, we view it exactly opposite to that, in the sense that it actually is a really good financial decision. If you look at the stats, women-led companies, they have a lower burn rate, so they burn through money at a slower pace than or male teams. They consistently outperform male-led teams in terms of revenue gain per dollar invested or per pound invested. And they're quicker to exit as well. So I think that if you look at the stats, it's actually not a charitable case. It's something that people are missing, and actually a huge financial opportunity that people are missing. So when we say that women are undervalued, they really truly are, and overlooked, they really truly are, not even from a sort of, I guess, charitable case, but actually from a profitable financial reward outlook.
Brilliant. So with all these stats, you know, why would people not invest in women?
I think there's just, like, as I said earlier, I think in terms of not being able to identify that, what exceptional looks like in women, and pattern matching against what they know to be true. So in a lot of cases, it's just sort of inherent or implicit or subconscious bias that exists, and not really people explicitly saying, I don't want to invest in women. And then also not knowing how to attract women basically into the rooms that they need to be in. So you can go to a lot of events that are open to all, but the room ends up being 90% male. So I think it's interesting, and it's really subtle in terms of how you brand yourself, how you position yourself to attract women. And we've seen that, I think, because my co-founder and I are technical women, we know exactly what appeals to technical women.
Exactly.
So we're able to attract the group that we actually want.
it's hard to attract a group when you've not really walked in their kind of in their steps. You can empathize and definitely you can learn, and there's always ways to learn, but to actually know what they want. It's funny because I went to a running event because I really enjoy running, and it was like a tech sort of startup run event. And then I got in there, and then I went to open the door and I saw all these like men with like their shorts of like, and then I just stepped outside for a minute because I was like, you know what, I'm actually not ready to play.
Yeah.
So as soon as I came out, I was just about to brace myself. The girl saw my face, was like, there's only men in there, isn't there? And I was like, I could not believe you could see that.
Just like, from your face and your reaction. Yeah.
From the reaction. Yeah. But it's just, yeah, us women would be able to relate to each other. But I don't think a man could have ever seen my face and thought that, oh, this woman is probably not feeling so confident to sort of, walk into that room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, but it's great that you're being the change that you want to see, essentially.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And next, we're going to go into how to build a startup. This is being, this has been researched, or people are Googling this term, how to build a startup. And the second term is how to build a startup whilst in your job. So I know you've got opinions on both of those, so I'd love to hear that on those two questions.
I think it's... there's a lot. I think in terms of starting a startup, it feels like quite an opaque thing to do.
Yeah.
And people feel like there's no insight or transparency into how to start a startup. But I think there's not one set blueprint. And I think that's maybe the tricky thing when people are considering. Basically, there's a few characteristics that I think you need to have that will, I guess, make you outperform as a founder. And then there's a couple of things that you need to start thinking about. So in terms of characteristics, I think if you're someone that is intensely curious, always questioning why things are the way that they are. So even if you are in a corporate job, for example, and there's certain systems that are maybe slow or laggy, like maybe you're questioning why that's the case and what you can do to change it, or you just spot inefficiencies wherever you are, and it kind of feels like an itch when you spot them, like that's a really good sign. If you have really good bias to action, so if you always act on things when as soon as they come into your scope, that's a really good sign, because things in the world of entrepreneurship they're very fast paced, and you always need to be reacting and making decisions quite quickly. So I think procrastination is not the friend of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who is always like sort of switched on and reacting quite quickly, there's actually I read somewhere it's more of a correlation and not causation of good founders tend to reply to emails quite quickly.
Oh yes, I've seen this.
Yeah. So I think that's just a sign of just, the pace at which people work and not procrastinating. And then I think an interesting one as well is, I think, in my opinion, if you are able to rally people together, and that can even mean in a social context, for example. So if you are the friend that, like, you are the one that makes plans and people show up when you make those plans, that's a signal of actually being able to get people on board, get people on your side.
Yeah.
Those are like a few characteristics that I think make a really exceptional founder.
It's good that, because I've seen heard on some podcasts that what some VCs look for is like exceptional at video games as one of those, being one of those sorts of traits, early signals. But then someone mentioned that, a lot of women aren't 7 years old, build, make games. So like, if that's your pattern recognition, that's what an exceptional founder looks like, we've got to be looking at something else, like social, like being a social, organizing those holidays, which might be a more female thing to do rather than a
100%. And I actually saw something a couple of days ago as well. I think it was a reel on Instagram by Cat GPT. And she mentioned that, and her opinion, which I agree with, is that how sort of signs of exceptionalism and great founders in men presenters, like you said, the sort of like video game type archetype. But in women, she thinks it stems from creativity. So if you can see, like, as a child, you were like always filming things, or you were like doing art classes and that sort of thing, or in dance, she sees that as a more like a similar way to pattern match, I guess, against like women, for example. And then you also asked about essentially what people can do when they're thinking about starting a company. Essentially, I think that the best thing that you can do early on is just speak to potential customers. So I would recommend reading this book called The Mom Test, which tells you how to sort of have these conversations and to decipher information from people in a way that isn't biased towards what you think the solution should be already. So yeah, definitely read that, I would suggest. But I think if you can have as many conversations as possible in a problem space that you're interested in, that's a good way to figure out what you should start building.
Yeah, I agree. Because what we think people need is sometimes not what people need. Even we've gone through iterations with the podcast, thinking, oh, this would be so great. And people are like, I don't want to hear that. So building on that. And even something you mentioned just then about the reply rate, I found really, really interesting. Because some people are like, you would expect entrepreneurs to be busy. Why do you think they reply so fast usually?
I guess it's just a sign that like you're like taking into account everything that's presented to you and you're quick at making decisions. The only way that your business moves forward is if you make quick decisions. And it's basically in some ways a race against who makes those decisions and who makes the right decisions, but also ultimately you have to make a decision at some point. So you don't want, for example, one of your competitors to be like 3 steps ahead because you're taking too long to make a decision. So I think the email thing is just an anecdote and not necessarily like it's not causation, it's correlation. It's not necessarily that because you reply to emails fast, you are a good founder.
It's just...
Yeah.
There was even one that, have you heard of Cody Sanchez?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, she was saying that signs of really successful people are when they get a menu at a restaurant, they're able to pick what they want really fast. So she's like, the less successful you are, the longer you take to order, the more successful you are, the quicker your order is.
Maybe I'm not going to be that successful.
Really? You like to mull over the menu. Again, these are things that are just obviously anecdotal. But
who knows how? I guess who knows if it applies to everyone. But
I found that quite funny when she said that. How have you found building Accelerator? That's parallels closely to building a startup, bringing people together and things like that. So just share with us some of your experiences.
Oh, it's been like a whirlwind. I think there's so much that's happened and also so much that needs to happen. I think essentially a lot of people ask us like, how do you go about it? Where do you even start? And I think the real like sort of cheesy answer that feels very cliche to say is you just have to start. You just have somewhere and you have to do something. And really what I think I've learned over the past year and a half of building this is that when I reflect, it's just like you really can just do things.
You can just do things. I've seen this phrase before. You can actually just do things.
You can just do things. You can just make decisions and build whatever you want to build and put that out in the world. And it's up to, I guess, the world to receive it or not. So I think it's don't be afraid to fail is the first thing. And even if you fail 1,000 times, like you never know, like you might succeed on the next try. So I think it's really just a thing of like making a decision, thinking about a concept. For us, it was, okay, we're going to do a bunch of events to see and gauge if there's this audience that's excited about things. And from the first event, which my co-founder ran at the time, we had immense success from that. And then it's just grown from strength to strength. And then it's just about making decisions and piecing things together. Like you never know how it's really going to pan out. You have your hypotheses of things that will work and maybe they don't, or maybe they do. And it really is just that. It's one step at a time. I think we started with events, and if you think about what makes a good event, that kind of translates into making a good program. And engaging with different people, having different conversations. Like I said, is really important. A lot of the investors that came to our demo day were investors that we engaged with early on, and we invited them to our events, for example, to speak on panels, and then just kept those relationships close. And I think that's also a big thing as well, like just being connected within community, building really good relationships with people. Because a lot of the journey of entrepreneurship is just people. And maybe that's also another learning that I've had from this experience, is that everything boils down to relationships, how you communicate with people, how you relate to them. and just how you can be a supportive person and then also lean on others for support when you need them.
Yeah, that's something I've learned, because you think you can like sort of reach out to people on LinkedIn, do this, do that, but at the end of the day, people buy from people. It's just people who you know.
But also, I think there's also value in cold outreach as well. I think.
First, I mean, this was a cold outreach.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think makes a good outreach if you don't know the person?
I think it's being very clear in your ask. So I think a lot of the time people will outreach either to me, or I've done this before in the past as well, where I'm not clear about what I want. I just want a conversation, for example. And I think people are really busy. Like you said, like founders are really busy. So there needs to be something clear and actionable in the ask. And I quite like to state that quite upfront. If I'm speaking to anyone, like, this is actually why I'm speaking to you, or why I want to connect with you, and then seeing if there's any value that they can add, and vice versa. So I think it's stating the ask, but also providing value to people.
Providing value to people. Yeah. It's funny because I spoke to one of my VC friends and I was kind of asking if her VC fund would fund this event that I was running. And I asked it in like a really roundabout way. And she was like, Emma, you don't need to do this. Just tell me, like, what do you want right now? Like, we can just see if we can align. But I was trying to be like, maybe if you try. Yeah. And she was like, girl, like, no.
Just be upfront.
Just be upfront. Yeah.
And people appreciate that. I think there's a lot of the time where people are beating around the bush and you're like, just get to the point and we can see if this works or it doesn't work. And I think that is kind of like how I view even outreach.
And you even mentioned that make sure you provide value, because when you feel guilty and not want to be upfront, she was like, what you're providing, us being a sponsor, even though you're asking for money, would be useful for us. So you've got to think, what is it in for us? Because then you won't be shy about asking if you're thinking about what's the value for the
100%
other person.
Yeah. And also being confident in that, right? Saying that I can provide this value for you, and I'm confident in the fact that I can do that, and therefore I shouldn't even feel shy to ask, really.
Yeah.
And I think, I guess that's the other thing, is like, you should never, like, if you believe in what you're building or what you're doing, you shouldn't feel shy to actually just ask people, because you're just confident in it.
You're confident, and hopefully you'll be providing value for the other person as well. And I do want to mention that you went to Cambridge, did machine learning. How was that experience? And how was that experience?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think I came from an economics and applied statistics background. So it was way less technical than the machine learning masters.
Yeah. How did you even manage to sort of,
to like get there?
Get there, yeah.
I guess it was, I worked before as a data scientist at a bank, and felt that there would be like a lot more technical touch points, basically, and I didn't actually feel that was the case necessarily.
Right.
And I just wanted something with a bit more technical depth. And then I saw the masters. I thought that it was interesting. I applied, not really expecting, honestly, to get into it. I applied, went through the interview process, and I also got funded for it, which was just
by Google DeepMind.
Yes,
amazing. Yeah,
thank you for it, and I just had that experience. It was a very intense year course.
I can't imagine actually.
But I think it's like the relationships you build from that time are like some of the best relationships I still have today and nurture today, from a professional context, from a social context. So very, very tough, but very rewarding, and something I would recommend.
Also, how do you learn to code? Where can people begin?
Yeah. I think if I was to learn to code today, I think that I would probably do it in a project-based approach.
First, yeah.
So just pick something that you want to do, something that you're interested in, and just test it out and try and build it out. And now you have your AI agents, you have your Claude Code, et cetera, that can really assist you in building those things out. So it's not as scary and daunting. And it's also a really good time to build and get technical.
Brilliant. This wouldn't be the Nova and Boba podcast without spilling some tea. So this section is called The Reality, where we dive into, actually, maybe the things you don't see on LinkedIn, the things people don't talk about. So I would really love to understand what's been some of the hardest moments building the Tech Bros.
Yeah, I think the hours initially, very, very, very intense. I'd say probably still so much so. If you think about starting a company and there's two of you, it's everything to do with the company. So it's everything from like registering the company, for example, to like making sure that like the accounts are fine, to like opening a bank account, for example, like all the like different admin pieces, and then actually the company itself. So you can imagine that there's just an endless list of things to do, and consistently there's an endless list of things to do. And I find that even, there's just not enough hours in a day, even today, in the business. So I think in terms of like how much we work, it's a lot. You also really should like the person you're working with, because you spend a lot of time with them. And it's very much like, just 24/7 kind of building. So I think that's not seen really. And it's not necessarily a thing that I would love to portray, like, this culture of like hustle.
But you believe in Harry Stubbings 996.
But I think, I don't think it's a sustainable way to build a business. But in the initial phases, if you want to do something impactful and big, I guess, we found that we had to work a lot of hours initially, but now we've managed to build in more balance
of affairs. But initially, for the beginning, it had to be that way.
Yeah,
brilliant. And you say you had to really like your co-founder. So what about your co-founder do you really like and enjoy working with?
Yeah, we have a sort of alignment over vision for the Tech Bros, and I think that's the main thing. I think you need to be aligned. You need to have the same work ethic. You need to fundamentally believe that what you're building is going to be the next big thing. And if you align in those things and you communicate well, then like that's the recipe for like a good co-founder match. And then being able to trust them. So I think all of those things. But yeah.
Another thing is that what are some of the most exceptional female founders you've ever seen, and what traits do they have?
We had a really great cohort one. I think all of those founders are exceptional. Our sort of company that I find really sort of personally interesting and they're doing really well is a company called Neurotype, and they are reducing the amount of time it takes for AI, ADHD and autism assessments with AI, and they're reducing that time it takes to complete that from 5 to 7 hours to 30 to 45 minutes.
Wow.
And they're an exceptional team. The CEO has a PhD in clinical neuroscience. The CTO is a machine learning engineer. So it's just an incredible team and pairing. I think I come across founders, almost every day.
What do you wish you knew before starting this journey?
You probably won't ever be prepared. And I don't think you should feel that you need to be prepared. I think that someone said to me once, like, starting a business is the cheapest MBA you'll ever get. So I think in terms of that, I think it's worth it to just, if you have an idea, just try it out and see what happens.